So, I did something different with my face today. In case you can't tell, I mean, it's always kind of ugly and fugly. Okay, anywho. I got bored and did my makeup, all kind of Halloween-y and stuff. But that's not what this video is about. Today's video is a reading. Yay, I will be reading my story called First Kill, and I hope you enjoy it. Also, I will be reading this slowly. I have a tendency to read things quickly. I will actually be reading this very slowly. Alrighty. He knew he had to kill to survive. He knew this the moment her pearl-white fangs slid into his delicate throat. The very moment they entered his throat, he panicked. Fighting at her grip had caused her fangs to pull, rip, and tear at his throat. This made his transformation all the more painful. He remembered the pain and agony of this transformation with such clarity. It was astounding. He couldn't recall anything before as well as he could remember his insufferable transformation. His body had shaken from the excruciating pain, the pain that had swarmed every fiber of his being, that had ripped and tore at his insides, causing him to release blood-curdling screams. His body had felt as if it were being consumed by flames. He'd gasped, grabbing at his chest and throat as his breath quivered out of him in desperate attempts for air. He'd thrashed about violently, trying to fight the inevitable. This went on for days, the intensity of the pain quickly inclining, his panicked thoughts reverberating off the walls of his skull. His cries and pleas for death grew with each second that ticked by. When that suffering was over, he'd fled. He'd ran as fast as he could so that he could escape her clutches. Soon, very soon after, this new suffering began. He wandered around aimlessly, his strength rapidly deteriorating. That was a week ago. Now, he could hardly stand, let alone walk. Stumbling is a more accurate description of how he got from one place to the next. It was becoming apparent to him. If he was to survive, he had to feed. Soon. It was time for his first kill. Was it instinctual, like the movies portrayed? How was he to carry out the deed? He was fearful of what would occur during his attempt to sustain his hunger. Or would it be his thirst? Whatever it was, he had to put it to an end, for the time being at least. He knew it wouldn't stay away for long, but at least it would be gone for a few days, or hours, minutes. Oh, how he loathed this uncertainty. His cat-like nails dug into his thighs as he hugged his knees tighter and proceeded to rock back and forth on his heels. It was back, the burning in the back of his throat, which would gradually work its way to the rest of his throat and then to his mouth. Another animal must be close by. I must be hearing its pulse, he thought. He knew killing the poor creature would help very little. He wanted to kill it so bad. He exhaled slowly through his nose. Yes, it was time for his first kill. Part 2. Even the simplest of movements caused him a great deal of pain. His muscles silently ached and groaned. He couldn't correctly jump, so he simply threw himself down from his stone shelter, landing awkwardly on his back and wincing in pain. Using a nearby oak tree for support and a series of trial and error, he managed to pull himself up and staggered toward civilization. Every few feet he would fall to his knees or trip, grabbing at something for support. He sobbed occasionally, grasping for air. The hot, bloody tears flowed out of him in loud hiccups. He cried blood. How strange, considering he'd yet to drink any. He would have been better off staying in the solitude of the freezing, yet comforting cave. He was close to people now. He knew from the way the hair stood up on the back of his neck and the way his nostrils flared up every time a warm autumn breeze came his way, making the various colored leaves fly up, swarm, twirl, and dance. The colors were so bright with his new eyes that they distracted him more than he would have liked. The very second he emerged from the tree line, he fell to his knees and nearly fainted. Would his instincts, if he even had any, kick on while he was this weak? While lying there, a small rodent, a rabbit, came within his grasp. The poor creature obviously assumed he was dead. He probably looked it, and how he wished he was. His reflexes were too slow and stiff for him to catch it properly. He just lay there, silent and immobile, despite the pain coursing through his veins and the hunger slowly eating at what remained of him. This is what it feels like to starve to death, he thought. He most certainly felt like death. Perhaps it was too late to save himself. He must have waited too long. I don't want to die like this, he gasped. So many opportunities awaited him, even with this new life. He wanted everything he dreamed of in his human life. How would his parents react? How would they react when he never came home? Or when they were forced to identify his disfigured remains? How would the police react to the state of his body? If it was ever found, that is. He was already paler than a normal creature of his nature, bonier as well. His eyes were solid black. He couldn't imagine what death would do to his already dying body. After all, the moment you die, your body starts to decay. He gasped and moaned. Pain tears began to stream down his face as he shook, sweat pouring from every pore in his body. He was lying down in an odd twist. The ground began to vibrate with the thumping of heavy footsteps. The sweet aroma of cherry blossoms was entombing him. His canines protruded through his gums, promptly poking his bottom lip. That wonderful aroma was closing in on him. The ground's vibrating continued until it came to a sudden halt. "Oh my God!" And it was a woman's voice, calm, gentle, worried. It was high-pitched but oddly soothing. He could see up to her waist, but no more. She had on a pair of spandex blue and black running shorts. Her black and pink tennis shoes were roughly tied. "Are you okay?" A rather dumb question. True, he didn't look how he felt, but he still looked god-awful. He couldn't imagine how he looked to her. Probably like a corpse. No, he stammered. The wonderfully wicked sound of her heart was pounding unimaginably loud in his sensitive ears. Sweet torture. She dropped to one knee, causing the melody that was her heart's beating to amplify. His shaking persisted. She placed a warm, delicate hand on his shoulder. His heart quickened with each beat of hers. He could feel the blood flowing through her veins. That wonderful, life-sustaining liquid. "What's wrong? Are you hurt?" "Hungry." She felt his neck. The smell of cherry blossoms rolling off of her like a rogue wave seeped into his nostrils, sending his senses into a frenzy. "You have such a faint pulse, and you're so cold. Let's get you some help, all right?" She tucked her arms underneath his spasming body and lifted him up. He pressed his body against her, stealing some of the warmth she possessed. His head rested snugly in the nape of her neck. He inhaled deeply, savoring her scent, before licking her neck, where a bulging vein awaited his bite. His fangs slid into her throat as easily as a knife would slice through butter. She gasped from the sting of it. "What are you doing?" She tried to mask it, but panic was apparent in her young voice. "Shh," he coaxed. "Everything is fine." She stopped where she stood. He felt her body relax. He was latched onto her, his jaw fixed securely on her neck. It was getting tighter and tighter, drinking greedily. With a smile, he lifted his mouth and allowed a pleasured sigh to pass from his lips. "Is this what I've been missing all along?" Her body now lay on the ground. He gently lifted her head and arranged it so that he could get better access to her bloodied throat. He leaned in and sank his now blood-stained teeth into his personal crimson river. This time, as he drank, he wasn't as hasty. He sipped, lightly savoring each sip as it passed his lips and slid down his still burning throat, letting her blood relieve him of the pain he'd been feeling for so long. Yay! I felt like reading this this particular one because Halloween, vampires. So but yeah, so that is the story, First Kill. I wrote this back in like, let me see, 2012, 2013, and this has to be my favorite story I've ever written. Yes, I still critique it a bit, and I still will go back and like change shit, but that's just because I can never fully be satisfied with anything, apparently. Yeah, I hope you enjoyed this, and I will probably later on this week be uploading Draven's Story Part 3. Ooh, look at there. Progress. Okay, bye.